So I think we're going to get started. We do have a link, so there are folks on Zoom tonight. I don't blame them. I'm glad you ventured out into the cold. You're all brave souls. I'm Lori Rodrigue. I'm the interim superintendent again after a year. I should be retired. I keep saying that. People laugh at me now. And this is Mark Pompano. And Mark and I basically could finish each other's sentences. We've worked a long time together. He is the Newtown Security Director, and we've been consulting together. I was principal when we worked together, post Sandy Hook, and then I was superintendent in Newtown as well. So just wanted to welcome all of you, and I'll let Mark introduce himself, tell you his background.
So my background was in law enforcement, 22 years, Los Angeles Police Department, retired at the rank of sergeant. I know somebody's going to ask me, yes, OJ did it. I got to see a lot of neat things out there because I was there from the riots, Rodney King riots through OJ and everything. So for a kid that grew up in Naugatuck, it was quite the experience I had out there. And I came back to Newtown and well, then I moved, I came back, I retired, and somebody convinced me into taking or taking an interview for the security director job in Newtown back in 2008, and my plan was really to open a doggy daycare. Believe it or not, it's really what I wanted to do. But somehow I ended up in Newtown, and I've been there for the last 16 years, and it's been a challenging but good position for me. But thanks for having me.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Patrick, did you want to?
It's on the.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know. I thought you were doing it from
tray in
there.
front.
Oh, right here.
Yep.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so I wanted to tell you, first of all, welcome. You just walked in. We wanted to share a purpose because I wanted to make sure that you understood what this is. And you know, there's a lot of talk about buildings and what to do with our aging buildings. Tonight is really about safety and security. And that really is our purpose, to share best practices in that area. And we want to talk to you from experience. Hi. From our experience, certainly Mark has very different experiences than I do. I've been an educator my whole career. But we've done a lot with, for example, we did a huge audit of a very large urban school in Connecticut. They had 20 buildings. I got it right this time, not 18. 20 very large buildings, and all of it was a checklist, really. We go in and we went to every single building, so we have a lot of experience in that area. And we want to use the facts and details so that are relevant to this building tonight, obviously. And we've already done WPS, and we'll be doing certainly Burnham next time. So we also want to talk a lot tonight about some of the internal measures. It's not all about the building itself, right? The hardening, security measures in a facility, but it's also about the people inside. I'm just looking at you now, I apologize. We have Mike Epps, he's our SRO for the district, if you haven't met him. He's wonderful. And we want then at the end to allow time for your feedback, your thoughts, your comments, and your questions.
How we look at security, at least in Newtown and kind of around the country now, is a six-faceted approach. Planning. So by planning we mean, does your district have an emergency operations plan in place? Do you have a communications plan in place? I can't stress enough how important it is to be able to communicate, especially during a high-stress situation. Command structure. There needs to be somebody in charge at every incident, whether it be Mike, whether it be Lori as the superintendent, or whether it be Emily as the building principal. Somebody needs to take charge and delegate authority in order to bring whatever challenge you're facing to a successful conclusion. Training, a well-trained staff, and by trained, we all know what a fire drill is. It's all been drilled in our head since we've been kids. You hear your alarm ring, you get up, you walk out the nearest door. We could probably do it blindfolded. But nowadays, we're facing many more challenging things, especially violence. So in addition to the standard fire drill, we want to look at something called safe school mode. Here, I believe you call it,
It's on the sheet.
I'm sorry, secure school, where you're bringing kids and staff in from the outside due to something happening on the outside. You have a shelter in place, which is a little more restrictive. Evacuation. Do you have a place off campus that staff and students can go that's far enough away from here, especially as we get now into the realm of explosive devices and swatting incidences and bomb scares? Do you have a place where you can go that is far enough away from the school but is bus accessible, where kids and students can be picked up? And do you have another location that they could go to in addition to one of the other schools, or I don't know what you have for partnerships there?
Well, and the other piece of that is that it's really important when you practice that, because it's not just to have a place and to know where it is, but we had several occasions where we practiced it, even with, parents that volunteered to be other parents, picking up students and unifying them with their parents. And it took a while. So you can imagine if you really did have to release an entire district, what that would be. So the more you know what it is, where to go, how long it takes, who's in charge, very important.
The training component, it's very important that, I know you guys do it because lawyers are now, that kids and students and principals practice the drills at the beginning of the school year. Go through these drills one time each, especially lockdown, so staff knows what to do during a lockdown. In Newtown, we do what we call Drill Week. It's usually the first full week when kids come back to school after the summer, where we go over all these drills. Because we found out it made no sense to do a lockdown drill because nobody wanted to touch it, or people shied away from it. Why are we doing a lockdown drill in April when the school year is almost over? We've gone 6 months or 5 months without anything. So things like that's very important. As you get to the building, so to speak, the building hardening, structural enhancement. By that we mean fencing, gating, bollards, which are usually metal posts. They can be concrete barriers that would stop a car from being able to drive up on the building itself. Different types of door locking mechanisms. We call them intruder-style door locks, which enables a teacher to be able to lock the door without going into the hallway to do so. So it's basically keyed on both sides. Kudos to Don. Don has found a way to put thumb latches on these older locks. They are a quality lock, the mortise style. But Don has it set up in this district where they're not true intruder style locks, but no teacher in these buildings has to go out to a hallway in danger and to lock a door. There's also, the big thing nowadays is shatter resistant glass. There's companies now, like the new Sandy Hook School was built with shatter resistant glass where the shatter resistancy is already built in the glass. But to take older buildings like this, you can put a film that's similar to a tint film on the window that makes it shatter resistant. It's not bullet resistant, it's shatter resistant. So if somebody coming up here trying to breach the building from the outside with a sledgehammer or some other tool could swing away for 20 minutes and the glass isn't going to give. These building hardening things, what we're trying to do, we're trying to buy 5 minutes. Mike, I'm not sure what the response time is here in Region 12, but that 5 to 7 minute range, all right, so.
That's the range we shoot for, 5 to 7 minutes.
That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to slow a would-be person that wants to do harm to delay them from getting in the building. Personnel, it's something to think about. When I started in Newtown in 2008, there was myself and 3 security officers, all assigned to the high school. That's where the action was, so to speak. Following the tragedy at Sandy Hook, now there's myself and 19. Of those 19, 8 are armed, 2 in the high school, 1 in each of the other 6 schools. They're during the school day. By state law, my armed personnel are all retired police officers from a Connecticut law enforcement agency with a minimum of 15 years of service. So we do have that added layer in Newtown.
And could I just add, it's not just Newtown,
Yeah.
since
Yeah,
Sandy Hook, that has been
the standard.
more common than not across, not just Connecticut, but the nation. We had many schools actually come to us just to kind of get a sense, not only of the new building and the kinds of things, you know, we added to it when we had the opportunity, but also the personnel.
Correct. Also personnel, I have a cadre of 11 unarmed security officers. You say, well, what's an unarmed security officer gonna do? They're your eyes and ears. They work the door. All our doors are locked. We have one point of ingress at the schools. Every visitor, we have a man trap system. So by man trap, it's a vestibule system where security officer can buzz a person in the first door from the outside. You're basically gonna get a sally port, so to speak. They can give them a visual overview, and if they needed to turn around and ask them to leave, they could, but it gives them an extra sense of layer where they would have to be buzzed in that second set of doors. Once they're in the school, I believe you use it too here with the Raptor system. That's a visitor management system. It does not run people for wants and warrants. It does not give you a criminal background on somebody. However, it does access the 50-state sex offender list. So at least you know if a potential sex offender is coming into your school. That system also allows your, I believe your secretary's run it, you can add your own alerts. So let's say you have a parent that has a court order that they can't go near their child, but that doesn't, they still have educational rights to their records. So you can put your own alerts in to make things happen for another level of security. And lastly, community partnerships. By that I mean, in Newtown, we have 3 private schools. Let me backtrack. So Newtown, we have a district's security and safety committee that was started by Dr. Reed in 2013, shortly after the tragedy. It's co-chaired by myself and the head of the teachers union in Newtown, but it's also comprised of the superintendent, the first selectman, the chief of police, representatives from the fire department. We have a subject matter expert from John Jay College of Criminal Justice out of New York. We also have our emergency management team from Newtown on it. We have a parent representative on it.
Staff, para.
Staff, yeah, the union, yeah, para representation. And it basically, we're a group, we don't meet in secret, it's not like the Star Chamber. We hold meetings. When we first got together, we held them about every 2 weeks, where we came up with the overall plan that we use in Newtown. Now we basically do them quarterly, but it's a forum for everybody on that committee to throw ideas back and forth without being made to feel like you don't know what you're talking about. Everything we bring up, we hash out when we're able to implement a lot of things. Also on our committee, my whole point of this is our headmasters of our 3 private schools, one being St. Rose, Housatonic Valley, and the other being Fraser Woods, Montessori. So it's a town-wide approach to school security that we use.
They also have a Newtown site-based crisis teams as well, so that would funnel into, we'd have an agenda. For example, make sure we put all the drills at the first week of school. That was a decision that team made, and then it funneled to all the different schools. So there's a lot of consistency where everybody knows what's happening, and there's follow through.
Everybody has to be involved. Look at security, especially school security, as a all-in. Everybody's responsible, from students to staff up to the administration.
So I like to say, everybody realizes being prepared is most significant, it's the first step. But what does that actually mean in a particular building, in a particular school? What does it look like? Which is also very important. So these are really the 5 key strategies in being prepared. And Mark touched upon many of these. training. That's the kind of training that every school administrator, staff, even secretaries goes through each year. It's not a one-time kind of training, but we have to practice every year so that, because you get new teachers, you get new staff, so that everyone's speaking the language and understands what those guidelines are. Evaluating and refining school security measures. Again, making sure that they're working and making sure that they're in place. Updating school emergency preparedness plans. Now, that doesn't happen as frequently because typically we know certain plans, they're gonna remain for quite a while. But just making sure that maybe there's a new practice, maybe something that we learned even at the state or federal level, and that has changed over the years. Even the language has changed. So we want to make sure that we all have them, every school has them, everyone knows the language, and we're practicing. Strengthening partnerships with public safety officials. We had a strong partnership with fire, police, obviously, people from the college level and criminal justice, and that's typical of many districts. And then finally, creating an enhanced crisis communication plan and social media strategy. That communication is critical, so that everybody knows what's happening. Now, that doesn't mean we're putting out on social media or sending communication. Someone asked this at another meeting, if we're gonna do a lockdown, for example. We may not tell everyone, but there are times when we will share kind of our plan moving forward so everyone knows what's happening every year.
The challenging thing is beating the kids with the cell phones. These kids all have cell phones.
Yeah.
They're 10 steps ahead of us usually, so as a district, Lori's gonna put out information as promptly and as timely as she can, that's accurate. Is she gonna beat the kids? No.
I used to say to my secretary when I was in Newtown, when we do it, that's when you send it out to parents, because the kids would get there faster than we could. So she'd hit the button and most parents already knew. I mean, that's how quick the kids were. Okay. So, that's you.
So as we get into structural enhancement, building hardening, this is the layering model for school security. As Lori mentioned, we did an audit of a large school district here in Connecticut, and this is basically how we look at the overall approach to a school campus. Working your way in. We want to keep a would-be harm doer out here in the white before they even get to the school. So things such as fencing, foliage and natural barriers, gates and signage. You think, what's the sign's gonna do? You're making it known to somebody that it's school grounds, there's no trespassing on school grounds, unless you have business to be here during, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m., whatever it is on school days. So if you see somebody on the outskirts, might see somebody on the outskirts of the campus, wandering around, it gives him an alert saying, what is this person doing? So we try to keep it out there. The next level, the olive, things such as two-way radio communications. When your staff goes outside, do they have a two-way radio with them? Hopefully they do. Pavement markings. Again, you want to try to direct people and keep them as compartmentalized as you can. So when they pull into the lot here, you want to have clear signage that says visitor parking, all visitors report to main office. So you don't have people, walking behind the building claiming, I didn't know where the main office is. Because again, that's another alert for somebody. Surveillance cameras, environmental design. I'll touch more on that when I show you the pictures of Sandy Hook, because it makes it easier to explain. In the yellow, as we're getting closer, I mentioned the secure vestibules, man trap, the shatter-resistant windows, A-phones. If you don't know what an A-phone is, that's the buzzer system that you ring when you first get to the school. The secretary can see you and you can talk back and forth with the secretary. Visitor vetting, we mentioned a Raptor, and are your doors locked? You can't put. I will tell you, when I first got to Newtown in 2008, I could walk in any school. As a matter of fact, in October of that year, I took one of my security officers on a warm October day in a trench coat, and I got into every school. We walked around the middle school for 90 minutes, unchallenged. by administrators, by teachers, by kids. Nobody thought to even look at these two guys in trench coats. But, you know, that's how it was, unfortunately, so are your doors locked? As we get closer, this is like, now they're in the school, panic buttons, universal keys. What I mean by that is, what we found out in lessons learned from Sandy Hook, in Newtown, especially in our bigger buildings, the high schools, the middle schools, teachers' keys were very compartmentalized, where if you taught in the A wing of Newtown High School, your key only worked in A wing door, yet you could be in D wing or at a computer lab in F wing, and God forbid something went down, you couldn't get in a locked door or even be able to lock the door if you needed to. So what you do is create one primary key system for all the interior doors of the school.
Well, and that's because if you do have to lock down and you're somewhere else and you've got kids, your job is to take the students obviously into the nearest room and lock in. And if they couldn't get in the room, they couldn't help.
Exactly. I mentioned the intruder style door locks, staff photo IDs. It's just good practice, all staff members have their access badge in plain view. With
So
their,
do the board members now. There they are.
do they have ID?
Yes.
Yeah, good, yeah, good, yeah, very good. Somebody gets an A back there. Intercom system, does it work, can it be heard? In the gyms tend to be loud, cafeteria tends to be loud. You want to be able to have enough volume coming out of those speakers. Student Anonymous Alerts app. In Newtown, we use an app called Anonymous Alerts. What it does is it allows a student to anonymously, or not, if they so choose, to reach their building administrator through basically this app, through text message, and report an incident of concern to them. Bullying, something we stress that it's not a replacement for 911, but something of concern to the principal, and at the same time it allows the principal to actually get back to that student. Some parents actually use it. We give it to parents. We give it out for free in Newtown, and it does pay dividends. We first did it in the high school and the middle school, and then we rolled it out into all our schools now. But
And honestly,
Yeah,
people
be
told us
surprised,
you'd
yeah.
get a lot of nonsense stuff, you know, kids fooling around. We really didn't. We got things that were real and concrete and were able to follow through on. Things like bullying,
Yeah.
things like, you know, someone might have a weapon, you know, a knife in school. Things that we could follow up on and keep kids safe.
and I'll leave this last one, I'm sorry, two-way radios, again, I mentioned that. I left this one for last, I have a story behind it. Staff and student awareness, see something, say something. As mundane as that might sound, I could tell you 3 things in Newtown that have happened over the years, where somebody saw something and actually went and said something. We had a staff member with a handgun. We had,
After Sandy
yeah,
Hook.
this is after Sandy Hook. I had unfortunately one of my unarmed security officers not too long ago, you probably saw in the paper, with a firearm on the campus that they weren't supposed to have. Somebody saw something, somebody said something, and there's one more we had. Oh, recently, and it turned out to be a parent, but it was a male walking behind one of our elementary schools during recess hour, kind of looking indoors, looking around. A staff member who had a two-way radio, security officer went outside, confronted the person. It was the one parent that had never been to the school and was kind of lost because he had to park in the back. But again, as mundane as it sounds, it's worked. It works. So I can't stress it enough. And that's the layering model. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped the most important one. Sorry.
You want to come back?
Yeah.
You did.
The red, the fail-safe, armed school security officers, or Mike, we don't want to ever really get to this point. And the fallback is always going to be the planning and training that you put into the school's emergency response procedures. That's the bread and butter when the rubber hits the road, the last resort. People will how they train is how they will perform in the end. So, thank you. I mentioned, this is a photo of the new Sandy Hook School. I don't know if any of you have ever been on the grounds of the new school. Kind of looks like a Tanger mall outlet. I always tease my wife about that. But it is a beautiful school. And some of the security features, I can show you. This school alone has 82 cameras, inside and outside. Basically, when you turn onto Riverside Road, I'm sorry, basically when you turn on the Dixon Drive from Riverside Road, you're on camera, and that's all the way down at the Sandy Hook Firehouse. There's a gate that's probably at least 100 yards from the main building here, where visitors are vetted from the security office, which is this window right here. So we keep people far away before we let them come up. You can see the cameras there. It's a little blurry. This building has a non-audible warning system, a blue light and a red light. Blue light, staff is trained. The blue light comes on. If you're already outside, you take off. There's a problem in the building. If you're outside and the red light goes on, there's something going on outside. Could be a rabid animal, could be police activity near the campus. Staff know to bring themselves and students inside the school.
That is a vestibule.
This is the vestibule, this is the front glass. There's another set of doors in there. Both series sets of glass here. This is NATO level 5 bulletproof glass. I take their word for it. I'm not gonna stand behind it and be the test case, but this is bulletproof. All this glass here is school guard glass, where the shatter resistancy is already built in. Environmental design. In the front of the school here, it's hard to see. It's a trench. Some people call it a moat. When it rains, it fills with water. It's beautiful, but it serves as a deterrent. And also the ground here slopes away from the windows. So the school's designed where if somebody approached one of these classroom windows here with a long gun, they could never get a downward angle because the ground slopes away from the building. The wood on the front that's just decorative wood. But this school, and I'll tell you, this school was built with a door system where their classroom doors are all on magnetic holds. The school has a lockdown button that, when pushed, it releases the magnet. It's now the principal. It used to be my voice. It's now the principal's voice. Comes over the PA system, putting the school into lockdown, letting everybody know the school's in lockdown. This is the interior main lobby. As you can see, it's very open. Again, every piece of glass in this school is shatter resistant, other than the main entry. That's the bulletproof. Open, airy, a lot of nature. These louvers on the windows have nothing to do with security. They have to do with light refraction. It's actually an environmental design. I think, did I add the tree houses?
Well, we don't have a picture of that.
Oh, okay, I thought I meant to add it. So, again, this school is beautiful. It's very safe. There's very few 90-degree angles in that school, so if you were to go in the building and walk down the main hallway, because it's curved, so nobody could ever really get a beat on somebody after so many feet, after about 20 feet. And the school is built with wings, so to speak, so when that lockdown button's pushed, even if a perpetrator was here, he couldn't get into the wings. So it has a lot of design. $50 million. So what do you think was the big talk or the big concern after Sandy Hook got built? It was the parents who had kids in the other schools saying, oh, yeah, what about my kid's school? So over the years, we've done the best we could with a lot of generosity, a lot of grants, donations to try to bring the other buildings as best we can up to the standard of Sandy Hook School. It's difficult, but
they all
people
do,
feel good,
but
yeah.
they all do mimic
Yeah,
the
they all-
vestibules,
yeah.
all the important components, even though 3 of them out of all of them are older, much
Exactly.
older. Yeah. Yes,
I was gonna say, I've been at Sandy Hook School, and
Yeah.
one of the things I noticed is when you enter the school, you're gonna be walking a long time before you
Yes.
encounter a classroom.
yes, and that was purposeful.
And it was deliberately done that way, and that's what you can
Absolutely.
do with a new building. You can make the classrooms remote so that it takes a while for someone to reach them, and therefore you can lock down.
Exactly,
Brilliant design.
yeah. Okay, so now we want to talk about the good things here, what's already in place here in Booth. So we talked about emergency plans and practice drills. There is awareness. We talk about that every year. And the principal, Emily's wonderful at that, and we talk as a whole administrative team in the summer how we're gonna unfold that, again, as an annual awareness training. Local police are visible here during morning drop-off. The building leadership makes sure that, again, doors are locked during the day, and all direct staff and students to keep them closed, something we also want to make sure our students are fully aware of, and staff. We have an SRO, as I pointed out, a wonderful SRO for the district.
I do want to add our officer, Bill is right here today, he's actually joined us.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so
Hi.
he's usually here in the morning.
Campus is off of the main road and adjacent, that was for the other one, sorry about that. Plans for evacuation, reunification, and other emergencies are known to staff and leaders. All doors are remain locked. As we mentioned, the shatter-resistant film on the main doors only, and thanks to Don for that. Panic button for school emergency lockdown. And we have gone through school vulnerability assessments in all of the schools, and that was just done in 2023. So we do know, we were fully aware, and thank you for the local police for doing that. They went around and did, again, kind of that checklist of what are the things that work, what are the areas that need improvement when it comes to security. And then existing concerns. Building is on the main road, general public walk and drive past the school to go to the library and to the store. There are no bollards, as Mark mentioned, or exterior barriers. Purposeful landscape and trees are another way of making, kind of a perimeter barrier. Not all doors have card readers, is that correct, for
Yes.
entry? The intercom system does not have an adjustable volume. Some speakers are loud while others can be barely heard. Exterior doors react to weather, which impacts closure on some of them. Staff need to double check doors. Front doors open to the building upon entry. We talked about the vestibule, obviously it's an older building, there is no stopgap there. You can come right in once you get in. Large window areas with no protection. Some windows are difficult to open and close. The Wi-Fi connectivity can be inconsistent here, as in many buildings, especially in the downstairs classrooms, no security, and the secretary handles all of the incoming visitors. And that's pretty typical, I would say, in all of our elementary schools. So while I'm saying it's unique here, it's really pretty common across the district. Questions? We try to we don't want to scare the bejesus out of anyone, but we do want to make sure that you understand sort of what our best practices, typical of schools. And look, we're not the only district that has aging buildings, not by a long shot. We saw how many in that huge urban school district, many new ones and many old ones. And they have the same, everybody's up against the same issue, which is, what do we do with the aging buildings? We're building new ones and they're state of the art and they're safe and they're secure, but we still have other buildings. So it's a challenge for sure. Thank you, Audrey. Yeah.
I'd like to know how it is that kids are brought into this conversation. That how are they feeling secure and trained?
That's a great question.
So we usually do have discussions with our students at multiple points in the year. I always, actually before a lockdown, we'll have teachers, they have like a script of a review and then possible questions students may ask and how to answer it. And it's usually talking to students that there are times that we might have to all be inside the building and we all might have to be in our classrooms. We do not go into any specific talk about, per se, an intruder, but we just talk about there will be times where you need to listen to the adult that's in the room, whether it's your teacher or, a paraprofessional, and that we practice lockdown, which they know means we're gonna pull the blinds down, we're gonna shut the door, we're gonna lock the door. There might be times where your teacher might ask you to move furniture to block a door possibly. And also we give the students power in the sense that we tell them, if you ever think there's an emergency, you're gonna call 911 and this is how you do it on our phones. For most students, we talk about it as empowerment and to feel comfortable. A few students might express when we're doing the practice that they get a little nervous, and so we might do a little extra instruction saying, this is what it's going to be, and they come up to my office, so I show them all the steps that we take during the lockdown. And we talked to them about fire drills. You can do it with your eyes closed, right? The drill goes, you know what to do. That's what we're trying to do with lockdowns, is if we ever need to do it, you know what you need to do. And to just let them know that in the end, they also go with their gut. If there isn't an adult there and, you shut the door, you lock the door, or you pick up the phone and you call 911. So most of our students have done this for years, but we also have that we're not trying to put any fear into them, but just knowing this is a protocol and there might be a time where we say we're going to lock down and they should know what to do.
Parents talk to students as well, we know that. And kids are, I hate to say this, but very different from 20 and 30 and 40 years ago, right? They're a lot more savvy. They see the news too, or they hear about it from friends. So the one good thing about elementary is they listen to teachers and will do whatever they want. It's a little harder at the older levels, but I will tell you, all kids, I just had lunch with a group of high schoolers here, and we talked about safety and security, certainly. And my question was, do you feel safe? For the most part, kids here feel safe because of the adults, because of the people around them that do refresh training with them, do, have open discussions, whether it's an advisory or a morning meeting at the elementary level, that's key. But it has to happen all the time.
I will say, just to add in, I had a student who won principal of the day with me last year, so that meant all day the student traveled with me, and we did a security check, and it was so impressive. I told the student they could be the principal. They knew all the security measures we were supposed to have in place. Like, the doors have to all be locked, let's check the locks, let's look up at the windows. Like, the student knew after a few years of doing this, it just becomes that we're all part of it, so if a student notices something, they can say something to us.
Yes.
You mentioned about that they could call. What's the cell phone policy, the protocol?
We have classroom phones, we have in all rooms that can call outside lines, and there's also a paging button as well, so we're not talking about cell phones. Most of our kids, if they have cell phones, it's just Wi-Fi based, it's not per se cellular, but they also really shouldn't be accessing it, so it's,
That's what I asked.
yes.
Yeah.
So every classroom has one, or room, that's student's room.
Do you have a question?
I know that you probably wouldn't want to disclose any particulars of the safety plan for Region 12 or Newtown, but I guess, Mark, I'm kind of curious to hear your thoughts on just sort of like high-level training teachers. I work in a school, we've done ALICE training, we've kind of moved away from that. I think there's different schools of thoughts on, do you train hard on lockdown? Do you train hard on evacuation? Do you try to empower teachers to make those assessments? Does that just confuse them if there's too many options? And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that in general.
So, I'm not gonna ask you what district you're from, but ALICE training is only as good as you keep up with it. In Newtown, we have our own. We use a variation of ALICE, but it's more run, hide, fight, so to speak. We do go over the drills with the teachers, like I said, during drill week, the beginning of the school year. The principals are really the main drivers at the school-based level for doing the exercises. Each of our schools, in addition to the principal, has an emergency response team made up of volunteer staff that, let's say the school goes into safe school mode. They have door assignments to make sure nobody's leaving, everybody stays in the building. So we do training like that. But there's definitely buy-in from the staff, for sure. And again, it's repetitive. We do something every month. As I mentioned, we do all the drills at the beginning of the year, and then monthly we do a couple fire drills, then something else, whether it's a high wind drill, but we always mix it up. There's always something going on.
And this is throughout every building, and when I was talking about emergency response plans and all of that, this is part of that. It's just a chart, a visual that, so you remember what's the difference between, we called it, it's hard for me to get it out of my head. Safe school mode was in Newtown, but it's secure school here is what the language is. Again, there's an example. I have to get with the lingo, because if I talk to staff here, it's got to be what they know. But all of this is so that it hangs, what are the steps under that particular, whether it's a lockdown or a shelter in place, what are the protocols for that particular, it's not always a drill. but-
Yeah, it's very important too that staff in Newtown, I know here, in addition to that, in Newtown, our staff at the beginning of the year, they do an online training all in school security, so they get training that way. I meet with all new staff in August, all new people, no matter what, if they're a teacher or secretary, and I give them a security talk kind of like this, going over the procedures at the beginning. But they also have, like, I want a better term of word, a flip chart in the classroom with all the emergency response procedures. So there's a lot of duplicity in what we do in Newtown.
And we followed suit with that. Mike came in and did a talk with, a discussion with all of the new staff, the new teachers,
Yes.
at the beginning of the year as an orientation. So safety and security was part of that bigger program. Yes?
Some of the known issues in Booth, like the intercoms having different volumes, or the unstable Wi-Fi, or the card entries on the doors, or fencing around the perimeter, is there a checklist going through those, or is it a wish list of fixing them? Or are those fixes not possible in this facility?
Don, you want to take that one? Because I know everything goes to facilities when it comes to
Absolutely.
some of them.
We're constantly trying to upgrade all of those components. These buildings, this particular building is built in the 50s. It's got mechanical equipment that's old too, so we're trying to spread the funds around and update what we can as we go. Yes, we're constantly trying to update. Our next look here is can we put an inner vestibule in the front door too, and adding some card readers here and there.
And those are easier, like card readers. We've already got that on the list to add them, but things that are true safety and security, meaning a door that doesn't lock, it doesn't shut, we have to fix those right away. It doesn't
Well, I
matter.
mean, that's a great example, is we had a lockdown drill last week, and Mike, Officer Epps and I went through the building, and we realized one of the doors, the lock wasn't working. So that would be like a high priority. Earlier this year, the walkie-talkies, some of the support staff are saying, wow, I really can't hear clearly from the playground all the way from the office. So we got new walkie-talkies that, are, like talking on a cell phone from that distance. So there's things that we'll do automatically that we can do right away and that are important to do.
And sometimes things like Wi-Fi connectivity are out of our control a little more than other things, but it's not something that would necessarily prevent us from doing drills or locking down in reality without it. So things though, like doors that don't lock, that has to be immediate.
In Washington, when we were there, I sat next to our first selectman, who's also on the fire department, and I had suggested that we do not only training in the school, but all the pieces of the emergency response would come and do training together and work together, so everybody knows where they're supposed to be, what they're supposed to be doing, whether it's, I wanted to do it in Washington, but I'd also like to do it at Chippewa, and I suggest you do it here too.
I just said to Mark, we did many tabletops, that's what they're
You're right.
called actually, where you it's a partnership of all the emergency response, fire, local police, EMT, superintendent, all of us would come together, and there'd be they'd give us an actual, scenario, and you would go through it, including, Mark, when you were talking about incident command, the biggest thing is who's in charge. Does everyone know that? You always throw that quiz out there, and
Yeah, it's like, do you know who's in charge? So if the police come here because somebody, I know Emily does the perimeter walks, and comes across a suspicious package that maybe has wires coming off, or coming out of it, they call the police come, who's in charge?
I know now, it's the fire department.
No, you
Fire
gave
chief.
it away, you gave it away.
yeah.
It's the police, unless that package blows up, then it's the fire department.
Well, it's
But,
right,
yeah,
and
yeah.
we would always say
Yeah.
when the fire chief gets here,
Yeah.
he's in charge,
Yeah.
or she.
I had no idea. I never heard that before.
Really?
And my husband's an EMT, And I said to him, what would you think? He goes, the fire chief, of course. And I'm like, wow, things we don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Are there questions on?
No,
Oh,
none.
okay, wow.
And I posted that they can ask questions right now.
Other questions, thoughts?
Oh, I know. I'm not the one that put this up the last time, but Jen did. I think we should have security at every one of our schools, not just one security officer. I hope we can put that into our budgets. That's not something that's and that's not something we just want. That's something we should have.
Yeah, it's really not fair to task a secretary with having to vet visitors. I don't know how much, in Newtown, we get a lot of visitors to our schools, we just do. I couldn't imagine going back to having a secretary do all that, and I'm sure it's busy here too.
Well, and I know it puts a lot of pressure too on the secretaries that if somebody we don't recognize is at the door, that, you know, it's them on the front, right? So they don't know, and it's, you know, where you would feel like an officer might be able to handle that, that interaction with that person. It's, you know, it is a little scary for them at times, so.
Sometimes I always say sometimes it's just the presence of authority. That makes a big difference, believe it or not.
Is there any plans for that?
We're talking about it, there's discussion, but I haven't presented the budget yet, so.
I know that Connecticut has a lot of state funding for schools. Is that something Region 12 is taking advantage of or able to take advantage of?
I don't think we've, not with respect to that. Are you talking about security in
Yeah.
particular?
Yeah, they do have.
Not with personnel, I don't think there's, you know?
Yeah.
Not for personnel, for
Yeah.
hardware,
for
software.
hardening,
Building
Yeah.
hardening stuff, yeah.
Yeah, there are security grants.
Yeah,
We're always looking into grants.
I would be happy to help with that if
Yeah.
that's something you're interested
Yeah,
in.
and that is something that many schools utilize, so
Yeah.
everyone has that option
Yeah.
of using that, yes.
I was gonna say that some of the challenges that the buildings, the older buildings present, for example, we could build a vestibule in the front entry to the school, but the ideal vestibule is not one that you admit someone to and then admit them directly to the school. You admit them to that and then have them admit them to the office, and they can't exit the office unless a staff member uses a key card to open the door. I mean, you want those extra measures of security, that's what's being done in some of the new schools being built, but the problem is how do you do it with the available space? Where, you know, it's a challenge, and we're trying to figure it out. But I mean, there's a whole raft of things that, you know, when you see them in a new building, you see that you have the ability to do it easier.
You know, when you go into a new building, it doesn't have to be Sandy Hook. I was just saying, the superintendent in Brookfield, they just built it's consolidated only for their town though, not 3 towns, where they closed some buildings, elementary, that were falling apart around the kids and opened a school that had all of the elementary in one. So they have 1 elementary, 1 middle, 1 high school. Same thing, I mean, when you look at the state of the art, what they've done, it's no comparison when you're looking at buildings that were built, you know, how many hundreds of years ago, or 50 or more. So it is, you know, there's some things that are out of your control when it comes to that.
About that, I mean, when you go to, I have grandchildren, and when I go into their school, it doesn't happen to be in this district, but there are a lot of people coming and going, no matter, and, you know, how, it's a hard thing to do, to accommodate, who and where people are going. It's a challenge.
It is another reason why, you know, it's difficult on a secretary to manage all of that, you know, to put that level of eyes on someone and know. Sometimes it's just an out of control parent, believe it or not.
I was, you know, gonna say.
It's not just what you think of this perpetrator who's coming to do harm. Sometimes it's someone that needs an officer to say, you're not coming in, I know you're upset, kind of thing. It's harder for a secretary in those kinds of conditions.
Well, in that situation, a vestibule would be great, because we had last year a parent who was leaving the building, And it was just by like common courtesy in a sense, held the door open for another staff member, I think it was you, Patrick, actually coming in.
Yeah.
And the mom went home and it hit her, oh my gosh, I held that door for that person, and she called us saying, I don't know. We're like, don't worry, we saw, it was a staff member, we knew it was. But the parent, like as she processed it, realized I shouldn't be doing that in a school where a vestibule would prevent somebody from allowing somebody else in, so.
What about when kids are arriving at school with backpacks and things like that? How do you, if safety
That's
gets in there?
tougher. I mean, there are some schools, if you go to some urban schools where they actually, you know, can put it through and you can see inside, but we don't do that. So it's, again, that's more about someone giving us some information. That's where we've gotten a lot of that where a student said, so-and-so has something in his backpack.
Yeah.
It's, you know, look, there's not a foolproof, it'd be great to know, or some schools don't allow them in. Or some schools do the transparency, you can see right through, but, you know, it's not a perfect system and, you know,
I'll
in
say
all
in
schools.
elementary, we don't check, but we did have a few kids earlier this year who came forward, only first grade, saying somebody has something in their backpack and it doesn't look safe. And it was a toy gun that didn't really look too much like a toy gun that, you know, snuck by the parent and put it in their bag. So that's where see something, say something, definitely, even at the younger level, kids will say something.
We try to keep it to one point of egress with staff members out there just looking, just watching. Coming from Los Angeles, it doesn't look good, and it takes forever for them to let kids in. I mean, in LA, the school uniform is blue jeans and a white t-shirt because of the gang problems. You can't have people flying colors, but you see these kids lined up the sidewalk and one at a time going through these metal detectors, and it's, I don't know.
We would check bags typically for overnight trips or things like that, where they were more apt to, you know, put something in without their parents knowing, not going to school. We would always check those.
Like Lori said, it all comes back to the see something, say something, because in the high schools at least, or the middle schools, there's already weapons in the school. They have culinary programs.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
A question about the app, I know you're using that in
Yep.
Newtown, is that something that, I don't know, if this age level that you do that? If
We've
this-
talked about that. There are a lot of things on the list that,
Yeah,
you know, it takes time.
right.
We're trying to, one step at a time, right? Let's make sure that everyone knows what to do, what the language is, and what improvements we need. And just this kind of discussion puts more things on the radar that, you know, let's move them up to the top of the list.
But the kids in elementary are quite savvy with technology.
Oh, they are.
I bet, you know, even
Absolutely.
in kindergarten, they know how
Yeah.
to, like, go on those devices and move things around and text. And so I think if the app is user-friendly, it probably would be.
It is, but we also, even in Newtown, said to kids, this is, you know, when you're home and you're not at school, but we always want to also encourage kids to go to their counselors or to kind of not be afraid of the one-on-one with adults as well. We always forget that. We don't want it just to be that either, because sometimes it's immediate. You have to go see an adult. Anything else? Well, thank you all.